Fatherhood for the Rest of Us with Bandon Handley. Because you're already great at everything else, why not fatherhood too?
Self. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hey there, Fatherhood for the Rest of Us. I am on today with RickClemons, who is a well-known culture disruptor in a good way, closet buster, and bold move strategist. Tapping into his 25 years experience in hospitality, technology, branding, marketing, personal development, and coming out late in life, he's created a no BS approach for success. As a result, individuals, teams, and organizations embrace his approach and follow his lead to bust out of the suffocating closets of their lives and cultures to make bold moves and to live life on your terms. So, Rick, thanks for being here today. Rick and I got the chance to meet at Podcast Movement up in Philadelphia in end of July 2018. Yep. And Rick, what's the question nobody's asked you that you've been dying to answer?
Wow. I think something that nobody has asked me ever is, if I hadn't come out of the closet, then what? It's such an interesting thing. And nobody's ever asked that. Nobody's said, okay, well, you were married, you had kids, living the traditional life, and here you are 20 years down the road almost from that moment that you said, hey, this is who I am. Nobody ever asked that question.
So what do you think? Where do you think you'd be?
I actually think I'd be dead, quite honestly. I honestly do. I think either the stress of living a double life would have killed me. I was a much bigger guy then than I am now. And I went through some huge changes. When I came out of the closet, I lost 150 pounds. And that wasn't because I'm okay, got to get ready for the man market. It was more just stress. And, what's interesting, Brennan, is there was a time in that whole period where I literally lived on top ramen and wine. That was it. And I wouldn't really eat during the day, and I'd get back to either my home, which at one point was just living with a friend. Mm-hmm. Then I had a small apartment, and then I finally, got a house. But in the first few months, it was just crazy living. And so, even if I'd stayed in the marriage, I think there would have been some physical health wellness stuff that would have happened because I was, a big guy. And I think eventually the psychological stuff would have probably caused me to potentially take my own life. I don't know. It always kind of sits there. It's
right.
If then what? And luckily, if then didn't happen, because here now is what did happen, But it's always an interesting question. And I'm glad you asked that, man, because I always kind of go there sometimes with guests too. And sometimes they can't answer that question because they're like, well, nobody's never, and I've always kind of had a couple of them there in the back of my mind. So.
Well, that's good. I'm glad you got the opportunity to kind of have that come out. And to let Fatherhood for the Rest of Us, everybody know, you came out of the closet again at the age of 36, but you actually came out. This came out during our conversation while we were having some lunch. You came out way earlier than that, before you even got married.
Yep.
Let's talk a little bit about that.
Sure. So, it's really interesting. And I always like to couch this part of the conversation with, this stuff is still happening today. There are lots of people going back in the closet, even though, certain general population say, oh, things are much better for the LGBTQ community. Yes, I agree. But there's still a huge stigma about coming out of the closet in so many different areas of the world and the country and things like that. And at the time that I did this, that whole stigma was a religious thing, as well as there was some family stuff where my dad's older brother was gay, and he passed away from AIDS and HIV right at the beginning of the epidemic. And simultaneously, here I come, strolling out of the closet, and then, no, you're not going to be this. We kind of did the religious stuff. I did not go through conversion therapy. That's something I like to always make clear. I did do some religious counseling, but that was more so, okay, this is the belief system and everything. And most of it, man, was because I just wasn't man enough. I wasn't man enough to say this is who I am. Now, I'm really thankful that I did go back in the closet, even though what transpired was, the end of a marriage and hurting a woman and, all that sort of stuff. I actually don't think I'd be sitting here either if I had come out of the closet, because I was really naive when I was 19-year-old. I was naive to sex in general. I dated a few gals in high school and stuff, but I think if I'd come out of that closet right at the beginning of the HIV/AIDS epidemic, I don't know that I'd be sitting here either, because I was just like crazy, stupid, horny guy, teenager.
You were a male.
I was a male. I just happened to be a gay male, so
sure.
it doesn't, that horny urges doesn't discriminate gay or straight. So
I mean, I know this is all supposition, but do you feel like a big part of it's not necessarily that you weren't man enough? Do you feel like it's just the support system didn't exist?
Yeah, the support system definitely didn't exist. God love my dad. He was a man's man and pretty hard ass. And I was afraid of him mostly. And I just didn't have there were people around me. There were people definitely around me that I knew were gay, but none of us were talking about it. I mean, in college and stuff, none of us were talking about this stuff. It's like we kind of knew, and it wasn't until my last 2 years of college I actually really met my first quote unquote gay friend. And even then we were both kind of hiding it, and which was crazy because I know if I were to ask a lot of my college buddies now, they're like, yeah, we knew you were gay, but we just, so what? And I was an interesting kind of anomaly because I kind of could ride the fence. I could show up and I'd go out and play football and all this sort of stuff. So I wasn't fitting the stereotypes. And then the next thing you'd see is here I am dancing on stage in some of the theater productions. But then I'd come back in and I'd be like a hard day's night and go out hanging with the guys and, go to strip bars in my college town just so that I could hide the truth. But then, so there was a lot of juxtapositions going on in life where everything got hidden pretty easily.
I hear you. I like the line you used kind of about a lot of people going back into the closet. And I think that this can actually, as your podcast relates, not just homosexuality, people that kind of come out, step into themselves, and then, they begin to believe in themselves and what they're doing, but then they stop and they kind of pull back. What would you say that's like?
Well, it all stems from what's the blueprint? What's the blueprint that your upbringing, your family, your social circles brought to you, that then suddenly when you start to do something, in fact, I'm working with a client right now. It's really an amazing journey with him because he's very well-to-do and he's very high up in his organization. And he's not only coming out of the closet, but he's also coming out of the closet about, I really don't like my job. So we're already working on the sexuality piece. And this is what's so interesting, Brandon, is this happens almost every time I do this work. We may start with the sexuality piece, or we may start with, I'm bored with my job. And then as soon as that kind of kicks in, that they start to feel empowered in some way, then something else shows up that they're like, yes, and I want to come out of this too. I want to do this. And I think for most people, that blueprint says you can't be this, whatever this is, or you're not good enough to, or if you do this, something bad is going to happen. And if you think about your own life and decisions you've made, there's probably some element of that then puts you into this confused state. And if you don't ask the right questions of yourself and go really explore that for you, you'll probably abide by the blueprint because this is what we've been told is true for us.
Yeah.
And the big shift is, I always say the biggest shift is when you begin to live life on your own terms. And that doesn't mean being an ass or anything like that. That just means looking at it for you.
Right.
And what does that work? How does that work for me?
Right. I think a lot of people can get that, a little confused. Authenticity, right, doesn't necessarily mean no filter. Right. It means, what would you say authenticity means?
So I'm going to say something. Can I curse on this show? It's because I think it fits this particular thing. It's not going to be a bad one.
Go for it. Yeah.
Okay. So to me, authenticity is not assholery. That's it. You cannot be an asshole. Okay. Yes, you can be an authentic asshole, but I don't think you can be a true authentic person and be an ass about it. Because to me, authenticity is, here's who I am. I'm just presenting who I am. I need you to see who I am. And if you don't accept it, that's okay. Now, that's totally different than, here's who I am. You got to accept me. This is how it's going to be. This is how it's going to go down. And if you don't accept me, screw you.
Right.
That to me is authenticity and assholery.
Right. And I think that the two can easily be confused if you aren't doing the work that you're talking about, right? If you're not doing the journey and going through the work.
And I think for a lot of men and fathers, especially, you know, I'm sure for your audience, there's guys from all age ranges, but I know I'm a baby boomer. I mean, I just turned 55. So my generation was definitely raised with the heavy-handed dad for the most part. I mean, all the dads around us were kind of those heavy-handed guys. And then if you step back to their generation, that hand was probably even heavier. And then beyond them, that hand was even heavier then. So when we have these heavy hands that we are given as men, I believe one of the best gifts we can do is to say, but how do I want to show up as a guy? What's my way of showing up? What's my way of being a father? What's my way of being a boss in the workplace? What's my way of collaborating with people? What's my way of being a husband, brother? We ask that question, and believe it or not, guys, you get to determine it.
Yeah. So we talk about living the life that was meant to be lived, and we talk about I want to living life on your terms.
Sure.
And again, like, you know, the whole coming out of the closet thing as more than just a gay term, which I love how you're using it as beyond being gay, right?
Yep.
Again, how about you? Let's just talk about, like, I know you've come out of the closet and you faced a lot of fears. Is there anything that you're still facing as a fear right now as you continue your journey forth, and how are you dealing with those?
Yeah, I don't think anybody who's human does not face a fear. And I mean, since we met just a little over a month ago, some of the stuff that's come up is, you know, I'm thinking about changing the podcast slightly. And so then I get into a weird space about, well, but then what happens if I do that? I'm looking at my speaking career in a little bit different lens since we met 4 or 5 weeks ago. And every time I look at these things, even my business stuff, I was telling you just before we came on the air, I had a collaboration conversation with someone, and it's great. But then that fear shows up of, okay, well, what if we don't work out? And, you know, how are we going to do this together? And, you know, we'll probably need to put a contract together and da-da. Each of those things is fears. But the thing that I realize is, if you don't experience fear, you're never going to ask the right questions. And then if you don't ask the right questions, you're probably not going to do anything.
Right.
But if you only experience fear and stop there, do you ever get anywhere?
Right.
The answer is no.
You don't experience growth.
Right. And growth is the important thing. And I'd much rather experience fear than to never grow. Simply because I've learned so much through this. One of my good friends is Jonathan Fields of the Good Life Project podcast. And he said to me years ago, Rick, one of your greatest gifts, I believe, in your profession and who you are as a person, but especially in your profession, is helping men go through these big life transitions. He says, you've gone through a divorce, you've gone through coming out, you've gone through corporate, you know, getting hung out to dry. You've been in a startup and watched that go up and then go bust. You've, you know, started your own business and you've struggled in your own business and then you've thrived. And he goes, you have this capacity to say, let's just keep going. And if you don't experience the fear, nothing will ever change and nothing will ever grow.
I love it. What the capacity, right, to go through all these things is one thing, but you also, how would you say you use that in your profession right now?
I would say the biggest thing is, first of all, every day is about waking up in the right mindset, which can be a struggle, but I wake up with a mindset of what's next. In fact, I just had a conversation with someone that pretty much summed it all up. And his company is about playing and getting adults to play more in life and business and all of that. And as we were winding up, I said, well, it sounds like really what the best thing to do is ask yourself, what am I going to play today? And I thought, and that was my side of it. And he was so excited. He's like, wow, I love this. I'm going to take that. I'm like, cool, man. But that's how I do this, even when I'm in fear. I mean, I truly experienced some fear this morning because there was some stuff going down on a speaking gig. And I thought, dang it, I'm really banking on that piece of revenue coming in. And immediately I went into my head about, if that doesn't happen, then what? And then I heard those words, what am I going to play today?
Right.
It's like, well, then I guess I'll just go play, getting another gig. I'll go find something else to play.
Sure.
It's like, where can I go do this? And I think as kids, this is something that we experience fear, but we never really went into fear unless somebody told us, that's really scary, don't do this.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember one of the very first times I was riding my bike as a kid, and we were building our own jumps, and, this was the era of Evel Knievel, and we're trying to see how far we can jump and everything. And one of the stupidest things I did, and we lived in Colorado at the time, but one of the stupidest things I did is the house across the street from us, their driveway went up a hill. But then as you came down the hill, there was the farm road, paved road that went on down through the valley to other farms. And then right across from their driveway was our driveway. So, of course, what do you think us stupid kids were doing? We'd go all the way up their hill, get rolling, go down the hill, across the street, into our driveway, and then hit this jump and see how far we could go.
Right.
Stupidest thing you could ever do. But I never was afraid of it until my mom saw what we were doing. Just as I was coming down the hill,
right,
just about to hit the street, and she's screaming, stop, there's a car coming. At that moment, I experienced fear, and I never would do that jump again. I was so scared of it.
Right.
But until we're told it's bad, or until we take that moment and re-engineer it. So what did I do? Okay, now we re-engineer. It was 2 days before I would ever attempt it, and my friend's like, come on, we'll be safe. We'll make sure there's somebody standing on the street looking both ways. Okay, still a little risky when you're kids because, we all get distracted.
Sure.
But it gave me the opportunity to go, okay, I'll try this again.
Right.
And I think this is something we miss as adults, as fathers, as parents, is think about the things that you're setting kids up to fear that then lead to you as an adult, me as an adult, waking up and going, man, if I don't get that gig, oh my God, then I'm not going to have this money for this. Or that's only true if I believe that's the only gig I'll ever get. Sure. When the truth is, hey, let's go play the game some more. There's more gigs out there to go get.
Right.
And that's where the play comes in.
I love that. I love that. Just being able to transition, feeling scared or intimidated or even timid for a moment. Because there's this moment of lack, but you were able to reframe it and look for the one good thing. And the one good thing that you found was, hey, look, I can just make this another game. Cool. I love that. I heard you say
and I think the game thing is so freaking important. And I don't want to discriminate here because being a father and raising kids, and okay, so I really can't comment to this except that I am a father. I had 2 girls.
Sure.
But I think for us guys, and I don't have one, so again, I'm just speaking out of turn here a little bit, to grab this concept of teaching your sons, especially your sons, that it's okay to play. As men, it's okay to still have fun. It's okay to be afraid, to be vulnerable. To me, that's one of the biggest gifts you can give a man. Yes, I gave it to my daughters. Women, it's similar, but it's different. But for men, to be able to give them that gift and say, it's okay to never forget to play. It's okay to never be ashamed of being afraid. All that stuff. God, those are the gifts that, man, if you can do that as a parent and a father, you do deserve Father of the Year award.
What are some ways that you were able to do that for your own daughters?
Honestly, coming out of the closet.
Okay.
My kids were almost 5 and 9 months old when this all unraveled. So they grew up with this.
Okay.
And they grew up in a space where it was about being who you are and not being ashamed and taking risks and saying, they saw me numerous times walk into teachers' classrooms at the beginning of the year and say, hi, I'm Rick. I'm Shelby's dad or Riley's dad. And I just need you to know something that I think will help you in case anything should come up this year. I'm gay and I want to be there for you and however it is for you, whether you agree or disagree with what I just shared with you. I just need you to know this.
Right.
And by mimicking that sort of stuff with my children and teaching them what shame and guilt is all about. And I believe, just because I've seen how they've become young, beautiful women, I think I taught them how to stand in their true power.
Right.
especially my youngest one. I mean, she'll kick anybody's ass if you just, look at her wrong. But
well, I mean, that's what it sounds like. It sounds like you're giving them a model of standing tall and for who you are, and not necessarily like being assertive, but not like overly aggressive.
Right. And learning to fight the battles that matter the most. I mean, they witnessed many, many, many years of me and my parents going back and forth until I finally came to the place of, it's just who they are.
Right.
This is where they stand. This is where I am. And, we just have grown through it. And so I think these pieces, all of us parents, model this stuff for our kids in different ways. But you asked the question, what specifically? I think is modeling, standing tall, never being afraid to say what you need to say in the right way, and letting guilt and shame just like go out the freaking door. Because there's so much in life as we raise kids that the guilt and shame piece can show up and we don't even realize we did it. In fact, I was at a winery the other day, and it's been a couple of months, and it was a wine pickup party. So there was food, there was music, all this stuff, and lots of families were there. And this father came and sat down across the table from my husband and I, and he had 3 boys. And they had just picked up their plates of food. They were serving different kinds of tacos. And the one boy had gotten, I don't know, carne asada or pork tacos or something. And he took a bite of it. And he said, "Dad, I don't really like this. Can I have your chicken tacos?" And the dad said to him, "I guess that will teach you to play it safe and eat chicken." And I thought, what a horrible message you just sent to that kid. The only way to be safe is to eat chicken.
Wow.
And it's not just about the chicken. There was a subliminal message that kid just received in a big way. Don't take risks. Always eat chicken, whatever chicken might be. Right. And it was just, and I ended up talking about this on a whole rant and riff on my podcast about it's not safe to play chicken. I mean, I'm sorry, think about what you say to kids and and even to each other. But I thought it was really interesting.
I think that that's one of the reasons people go right back into the closet or stay in the closet, right? There's safety in there. And there's vulnerability in coming out of the closet. There is unknowingness in coming out of the closet. There's a whole bunch, and you can come out there and almost like a vampire, like there's the sun, I'm going back in. And that's to me like kind of the same message that dad's given to his kid too, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So
it's
like stay away from chicken.
The crusade begins.
The crusade begins. Yeah.
So let's just real quick. Let's hit on the type of coaching you do, because I don't think we really hit on that.
Sure.
What type of coaching do you offer, and how do you reach your clientele?
So I consider the whole coaching thing pretty much anything about helping someone make a big, bold move in life. It was very much grounded in the coming out coaching. And it is still that. It is coming out coaching, but it's not just the sexuality piece. And so as I talk about the kind of coaching, it's more, have you ever met someone who they keep saying they're going to do this thing, but they don't? Or they have this idea, but they're still not executing against it because it's too big. It's too much to ask of themselves. And the coaching I do is to help people step into that space of, I'm going to do this. I'm going to pull my big girl or big boy panties up and get it done because it is the boldest thing I could do in my life. And it could be something as simple as I'm going to learn to talk to people. It's going to be as simple as I'm going to actually ask some people out on dates. In fact, I just started coaching someone who he's petrified to date, absolutely petrified to date. He can talk to women. He can have conversations, but he's afraid to take it to that next space because to him, that's a big, bold step. And I'm like, but you're like 1-2 step away. If you're having conversations with women, it's like one pivot to the right, so to speak, and you do that next piece. But to him, it is the scariest thing in the world. Right. And to him, it's his big, bold move.
Sure.
But the reason he feels that way is because he had a mother who said, women are dangerous. Just remember that. And so to him, anything he does with women is dangerous. And, we've unpacked that and all that. There's some interesting stuff in there. But it came back to, it would be really bold of him to go against his quote unquote mother's rules of life that women are dangerous. And so So that's why he's where he's at. So I get people from all walks of life. Obviously, through my podcast, through my speaking, things such as that. My book, Frankly, My Dear, I'm Gay. It tends to draw a lot of people who are coming out of the closet. But what I love that's happened in the last year, actually maybe 2 years, is people are starting to see the other piece of this, that this is about any bold transition in life. And it can also be about anybody who says, I'm ready. I'm truly ready to learn the fine art of living life on my terms.
Yeah. I love that. I love that. And I think that is I think that it's great. How do people getting to that space? What do you see? How do you see people getting to that space the most? I know it's a weird question.
No, I get exactly what you're saying. So how do they get there? Why don't they do this stuff? And what's so interesting, in fact, there's another podcast that I just did, and we got into a deep discussion around this. The reason most people get stuck before they can do a transformation or a transition is because they're confused. They're simply think about this. Every big transition you've made in life or transformation you want to make starts at the space of confusion. Because I know I should do this. I think I should do this. I don't know how to do this. And we just sit there and we spin until we start asking the right questions. And so that's about getting really curious. And that's when the pivot starts to happen. As soon as I can take someone from, okay, you are confused and you are spinning. You are spinning in this stuff because there's so many things you believe you bought into. So let's start asking some different questions. Yeah. And then once I can get them asking different questions, then as they start to get the answers, they start to build courage. It's like, okay, yeah, I got some stuff I can deal with here. I'm starting to surround myself with some people, all that stuff, but courage isn't enough. You need confidence. You need the confidence to now execute with that courage. And once you have that confidence, then it's really about truly showing up in a committed space. I know I'm going to do this. I'm committed to do it. I've got the confidence to move forward. And once you start moving forward, it is about consistently being who you are. Right. And that's really how I take people through the process. Yeah. Now, there's lots of little turns and twists along there because we can sit and spin for a couple of months and I'm still confused. Of course you are, because nothing has become concrete yet. Nothing is important enough. Nothing is clear enough. And until that begins to happen through the questions, we can't even get to those other spaces.
Right. No, I'm with you. I love it. I just, myself, I've gone through similar situations, right? And also being in the coaching space, you realize there's a space. There's I always call it like Neo, right? You make the first jump. You're standing there. You decide whether or not you're going to, and most of the times you fail the first time, right? You fail the first jump, and then you got to work with somebody,
right. And that's why most people, if they've tried to do this, and I'm not saying you have to have a coach. I just say if you've tried to do this and you failed, then you're in what I call assumption addiction.
Right.
Because you assume that because it failed in the past, it's going to fail again.
Right.
And if you are stuck in assumption addiction, you need to get out of it.
Right.
You need to throw all assumptions away and go, okay, but what if? Yes, and.
Yeah.
It's the whole yes and thing. And if anybody doesn't know what that is, it's like you can say something. So I could say, well, I'm gay. Yes, and if I left it there, then it'd be like, okay, so now there's some stuff that's going to happen there.
Right.
But if I say I'm gay, yes, and I'm also a father. Yes, and I'm also a coach. Yes, and I'm also a speaker. Yes, and I'm also a really good husband. Yes, and we get stuck in this is this thing, and we think that's the end of it. But when you say yes, and then you start to open up. I could say I'm scared, yes, and I'm also excited, because you can experience both those things simultaneously.
I like that. And I think that you also said too earlier, different questions. You're going to get different answers, and you're going to get a new way of thinking. And that, that kind of lines up to the whole Albert Einstein thing. You can't, you can't fix your problems with the same way of thinking they got you there. Very cool. So that's the type of coaching. Let's flip it over into fatherhood then, man. So what would you say is the purpose of fatherhood?
Good question. For me, it's not about teaching. It's not about pointing out things they've done wrong. It's about really helping your kid create their best life for themselves. And how you do that could be some teaching. It could be about pointing out some mistakes. It could be about helping them when they need it. But how can you help them create the best life for themselves? And I think you can start doing that at a very, very young age in the decisions they start to make, even as toddlers and young kids. They're not going to know what that best life looks like. And at 55, I still don't 100% know what that best life looks like, because every day is a new day to go, oh, that makes life even better. But if I can guide my children to honor what they believe their best life is, then I feel like I've succeeded as a dad. That may not be the best life I think they should live.
Right.
But if I try to make them live that way, then whose life are they really living? They're not living their life. They're living my version of their life for them. And I guess because I did that for so many years, until I realized, okay, there's bits and pieces of mom and dad's best life for me I'm going to try to put into the mix. But now I get to go do the rest of this.
Right.
And it was in my late 30s, early 40s when that was all coming together as I was coming out. And it took a lot of me unraveling a lot of deep BS to get there, which I think for most of us it would be. The other thing I think, too, the purpose of fatherhood is about inspiring your children to ask why. And not the annoying why, but to really ask why. Because I think too many things in our society is because nobody will ask why. They just take it. There's a point of doing blind faith, but there's also a point of you just swallow the pill. And I think in this day and age, there's a lot of just, we're swallowing the pill and we're not asking why. Even social media with kids, are they asking the right whys as to why this is the way they do life? And I just saw a really interesting article that says Generation Z, that's coming after the millennials, that they're actually more leaning back towards true connection. They want to use the devices and stuff for things, but they want to have more personal connection. So it's really interesting to see how we ebb and flow in this world that we're in.
Yeah, for sure. It's definitely, it's always cool to see the dynamics between generation and generation. And even with your own children, right? Like I'm sure Shelby and Riley are very similar, but like they probably have a ton of differences too, right?
Totally. And I honor that. That was one of the hardest lessons to learn as a father is, it's like, okay, I knew Shelby, and then as Riley started to get older, and then we started to go, wow, this one is going to be our challenge. The only reason she was a challenge sometimes was because she wasn't Shelby.
Right.
That was it.
Right.
That was all there was to it. And there wasn't anything good or bad. It's just she isn't her, know. And even at this age, she's 19, Shelby's 23.
Right.
They're two totally different young women, but man, I totally get who they are as people. And there's different ways I interact with both of them now.
Yeah.
And I think that's a beautiful gift that you're given when you as a parent can go, I truly can embrace that. And it's not easy sometimes. It would be so much easier if there was a little bit of, okay, I know what to do. But, when one's over here on this extreme and one's over, it's like, okay, God, but hey, nobody said parenthood was easy. So.
No, they said a whole bunch of other stuff like don't think you're going to miss it. And, you're going to miss the days when this was happening. What, you talked a little bit about your dad having a heavy hand. You talked a little bit about the relationship when you were coming out the first time. You talked a lot also about how you still, sounds like you still kind of have some battles. What is your relationship with like your father now?
I wouldn't say we have battles, deep ones. We have differences for sure. And a few years ago, my dad had a stroke. And even to this day, one of the things I feel like I still miss and yearn for at times is the approval. But I remember walking into his hospital room right after he had the stroke, and it had only been a little over 24 hours because he had it on a Saturday, and I think I was up there by Sunday evening. I was up there Sunday evening. So this would have been like the next morning, Monday morning. So again, just 48 hours at the most. And I walked into his hospital room. My mom had been there, and she goes, okay, now that you're here, I'm going to take off for a little bit. And his nurse came in, and it happened to be a male nurse. And I'm just kind of sitting there and chatting with the nurse about a few things. And then my dad, it's kind of amazing that, 48 hours after having a stroke, he's pretty lucid. And he says, so this is my son, Rick, and he's my oldest. And I don't really understand what he does for work, but he does something along counseling and stuff like that. And I guess he's really good at what he does, So, I know he helps people and helps them do the right thing in their lives. And I've heard he's really good at what he does. And I was dumbfounded because I'd never heard that.
Right.
In the past, it was, oh, yeah, he helps people come out of the closet. I wish he wouldn't do that because all the stuff that he felt around that. Mm-hmm. And it was just an interesting moment in shift where I almost thought, wow, this has been kind of hiding in there. And maybe he just didn't know how to say something like that, but maybe because of the stroke, something got loosened up, so to speak.
Yeah.
And it was a big shift in our relationship. And even in the past week, there's a weird incident that happened. And, thank God for my husband. He left me bent. And then he goes, okay, are you done now? And I get done, and it was after I had that little venting moment this last week. I'm like, okay, this just is one of those moments where I just got to say, this is who my parents are and move on.
Right.
And it also teaches me to look in the mirror because it helps me stop myself from going there and doing that stuff with my own kids.
When you say going there and doing that stuff with your kids, what do you mean?
Well, criticizing them in a way that it's like, man, all they were doing was wanting to share something. And this incident happened because I did a radio spot, shared it with my parents, and they're not old, but they're getting to that age where, they're looking at life through a whole different lens than I do. And they have some strong religious beliefs, and, they're like, well, we didn't really want to comment on it because, we don't really believe in Halloween, and, we just really wish you would have done something different. And I'm like, it's a freaking voiceover. It's not like I'm going, oh, let me go record all the Halloween. It's just, I did a voiceover gig on a radio,
Yeah.
And it pissed me off. It's like, I just wanted to share this with you. I thought you'd get a kick out of this because they didn't even know I did it. But then, they were kind of like, are you going to do some more of this? Because we'd sure like to hear some. Of course, my first reaction was like, screw you. I'm not sharing nothing more of it. I'm not doing this, but it was such a beautiful mirror for me to go. And actually, after my husband and I talked about it a little bit, and even before we even started talking about it, I'm going through my own head going, okay, what do you want to learn from this, Rick? How do you want to play this? What do you need to learn? How are you going to play now in this? Because it gave me the wisdom and the tools to go, remember this the next time your daughters say something to you, and you may want to interject that parental BS.
Right.
When all they wanted to do is say, oh, cool. That's very cool. Even if you're like,
let's talk about how tough that is, though. I mean, because,
some days I need to drink all my wine collection to get through it.
Sure. But it's not that we don't care. It's not that you don't care. It's not that you don't care. It's just that you just have that thing to say, and you got to get it out. And it just comes out wrong.
Yeah, that's what it is most of the time. And the thing is we don't think about the filter with which what we're saying something.
Right.
And of course, after the fact, I wish I would have. It's always I get triggered, which most of us do. We'll get triggered by something, then we can't think straight. So one of the things I've learned is, and I didn't do it that time, but it was pretty close, is to say, Rick, are you triggered? Because if I can say that in my head, then that usually will break the pattern.
Yeah.
And then I can think straight.
Sure.
And if I had said that, the thing I would have said was, oh, well, that's an interesting perspective, Mom.
Right.
And just let it go.
Right.
Which probably wouldn't have let it go, because then she would have been, well, what do you mean by that? I'm like, just an interesting perspective, Mom. That's all I got for you today, and I'll see you next week. I'm here all week long doing the same shit. So, just call me up anytime you want to say, you're doing weird stuff, son. But,
what is something that your dad did that you loved, that is something that you do for your own children?
As hard as this is to admit, he taught me to have a really good work ethic. He was a contractor, or he ended up becoming a contractor. He worked in construction his whole life. Worked my brother and my butts off. There was a lot of time we didn't even get to have a childhood because, we got to work, which that's just an extension of his upbringing. But because of that, I know what it means to be very detail oriented. I know what it means to really do your best. I know what it means to work hard to have the things that you want. I think he went to the extreme. But I know now, because of where I am in my life and the work I do, that was his way of hiding some stuff. If I work all the time, then I'll be looked at as this really great guy. And that's all he wanted too. So surprise, surprise, he wanted to be noticed, but he never really was noticed by his own dad and his own family. So then that gene and that behavior got passed on to me. And now that I can see that really clearly, I realize sometimes when I don't get it, it has nothing to do with him. It's just how he got raised, and he's 73, 4 years old, something like that now. It is what it is. So that's definitely something he taught me. He's a beautiful craftsman. As much as I hated working in construction, I can pretty much figure out anything to do when it comes to doing stuff around the house. So that's a beautiful gift that I've been given.
I love it. I heard on another podcast that you've done some books that you referenced that you really enjoy. And this kind of came to my mind. Is there ever been a book that you picked up and read, but you just didn't get anything out of?
Yeah. And of course, now the name's going to leave me. But there's been a couple of books that are very spiritual books that I thought, Eckhart Tolle's Power of Now. I tried, and I tried, and I tried. And I loved the guy. I could sit and listen to him, but I just could not. I could not get in that book. I'm just like, really? And I'm like, Oprah, honey, you brought me to the well and I can't drink, I don't get it. But that was one of them. And there was a business book a few months ago that I tried to get into. And probably the reason I can't get into it is because I think I got rid of it. I was like, this is just, get it out of here. It's out of the house, out of mind. I'm not getting into it. But yeah, definitely The Power of Now was one of those that I just like, oh man, please. I mean, this is supposed to be like the thing. I mean, even Princess Oprah has said this is the book, and I'm
couldn't do it.
It's like my girl let me down on that one. I just don't get it. So, but
that's funny. That's funny. And I was thinking about it. There was this book I read. It was called Men Are Like Waffles and Women Are Like Spaghetti.
Okay.
And I tried, man. And I just wanted to get, just like you read books because you're like, if I can just get one good nugget out of it.
Yeah.
And I really, the one good nugget I gotten out of it, I got before I even got the book. You know what I mean? It was like, this was the comment that came out of the book that was funny. And I was like, oh my God, this might be a great book to read. And I got through it and it was awful.
It's interesting because I read all the time. And so there's been many books that's happened. And I finally realized, okay, every once in a while there's going to be a book that's just going to be just like the movie trailer. Everything you needed to see in the movie was in the movie trailer.
Right.
You're good.
Right.
Everything you heard about the book, that you got it. You're done. So don't even waste the, whatever. Right. Just trust it. And that's why I love Kindle Unlimited, even though there's not a lot of stuff you can do with Kindle Unlimited because they only give you certain books. But I'm like, every once in a while there'll be one that I'm like, oh yeah, I've been wanting to read that book. And guess what? I pay $9.99, kind of like Movie Pass, of course, which is just like going crazy broke and all this stuff. But at least Kindle Unlimited is still working. You pay $9.99 a month, you can have all the books. Hey, if I only read 2 pages of the book and go done, I just turn that sucker back in, and no harm, no foul. So
right. No, I get it. What is one that's had like the biggest impact on your life?
Recently, Mark Manson's The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck has been my favorite. I read it all the time. When I get in my worst space, I'll like, okay, I'm gonna go have some time with Mark, and I sit down and I just pick a chapter and I read it because it's like, Rick, why are you continuing to give a fuck about any of this. You know, it's like, get real with yourself, man. Most of this stuff does not matter.
Would you say that that is one that is necessary to be handheld, or is digital okay?
Handheld.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely handheld. I mean, I think more for me that one, because I like to highlight stuff, but this one I actually not only highlighted, but I made notes. And that book has actually become the fodder for some of my podcasts. You know, I'll mention him every once in a while. He's kind of, him and Simon Sinek both are kind of people I like throw some stuff out every once in a while.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome.
It's kind of blasphemous because that book sits by my bedside right under my Bible. You know, I'm joking, folks. That's not true. But
come on, I'm pretty sure Jesus didn't give a fuck.
I'm pretty sure he didn't either. That's kind of the way
Great. Now I'm going to hell.
Yeah, well.
There go my other 3 podcast listeners.
Yeah, exactly. That's the way I always feel. It's like, you know what? I'm going to just mark this one explicit, and then now I'll be down to 1 podcast listener. So there we go.
I think I marked all my explicit because I can't figure out how to mark single episodes. I was just like, you know what? But that's
then I'll do one, and then I'll forget to mark it explicit. It should be, and then I get the explicit tribe coming after me going, you said the F word in that. Yeah, well, fuck you too. I did say that. So
you can't do that. You can't do that. Well, it's funny. We didn't really talk that much about fatherhood in this one, but I think there's a lot of fatherhood stuff that you can kind of glean out of it. And I think that the beauty of I think fathers more than mothers. I'm looking around to see if my wife's listening or not, but we can make a life lesson out of anything. Like you made a life lesson out of the chicken taco.
Yep.
And so I think that, just having the conversation that we're having now, it's been a lot of fun for me, and just, you've got an interesting story, an interesting past, and where you're going is also curious. Right.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So I think the conversation's been a fun one. What is something that you would like to thank your daughters for if they pick this podcast up in 10 years?
Honestly, for being open-minded, even when they didn't understand what open-minded was. I mean, at 5 and 9 months old, there was no concept of really what it meant to have a gay father. And then to continue to grow when they could have got swept up in things my parents said. They could have got swept up in things that their mother said, even though their mother was never negative about me being gay. It was more about, divorce and stuff like that. They could have got captured in any space around, oh, your dad's gay.
Right.
But they didn't.
Right.
And that to me is like a huge gift. A huge gift to be open-minded.
I love that. What it doesn't sound like you had I think it could have been a bad experience. It sounds like you got the opportunity to be a father, gay or not. What would you say to that?
Absolutely. And I feel very blessed by that. We had our times. We had some rough times right out the gate, and then things got good, and now it's not so good. But the kids are their own people now. They're adults, and things aren't good, not because of this, so to speak. I mean, if you put it in the hierarchy of why things aren't good, it has nothing to do with me being gay. We just don't get along now for lots of reasons that we could do a whole show on that. But I feel blessed. And because I do this work all the time, I see the worst. I have a client right now who his wife is telling his daughters what a bad man he is. Her family's telling him that. And I'm like, but up until 3 months ago, he was the most wonderful guy in the world. I mean,
right.
Really? This thing, yes, I realize it's a shitty, shocky thing to do.
Sure.
But he's pretty much 99% still the same guy.
Right.
So, I go from seeing the worst to, one of the funniest ones I ever worked with was the husband who came to me and he goes, I'm really, nervous about coming out to my wife. And I'm like, well, yeah, as you should be. And we worked. And then he came out to her and she goes, Well, I always thought you were gay, but I just loved our relationship so much. I was like, just going to wait for you to say we were done, and now we're done. She goes, now I got to figure out what I do next. I was like, okay, let's clone this one.
Right. That's funny.
But yeah, that's funny. But yeah, it's interesting, but I feel blessed. Even now that things are where they are, I still feel blessed that I think a couple of things have happened, that my daughters have done the journey to the point where they can decipher what they choose to read into anything that either me or their mom does. And of course, they've got the third person, my husband, who's been in the picture for a very long time. And he helps like really balance things out too. So,
okay.
Yeah.
This is just a place in the relationship right now, right?
Yep.
Anything that you would want to say about fatherhood that you haven't mentioned?
I think one of the things that is most powerful about fatherhood to me is really realizing that if you can communicate this to your kids somehow throughout their life, whether the sooner the better, and then continue to reiterate it. And it's one of my favorite mantras that I work with clients around. It's my mantra: the truth of who you are is far more powerful than who you're pretending to be. To me, that's a bedrock principle of living. And especially in this day and age where kids are so bombarded with, you got to be this, you got to look like this, you got to have this. It's like, but that's all great. None of that has to be wrong. And none of it really has to be right either. But who are you and what is it you want? In the moment you let go of the truth of who you are, you're pretending to be something else. And quite honestly, and this is something that Martha Beck, she's a life coach, one of Oprah's proteges, she said once on a show that I watched, if you're pretending and I'm pretending, then guess what? We're having a pretend relationship.
Yeah.
And those are some big concepts for kids, but I really do truly believe if you can teach them that the truth of being you is so much more powerful than pretending to be someone you're not from a very young age, I think you're gonna survive a whole lot of parental battles that you may not have to go through if you can get that instilled in your kids' mind.
Do you feel like you got that instilled in your children's minds?
Yes. Yep.
Awesome.
My youngest one struggles a little bit at times, but it's so interesting in the last year that she's been in college. I've really seen her own who she is. And actually this summer has probably been the most beautiful growth in her I've seen, because right before school got out, she got a job, a first job she was able to get. She's been living in an apartment on her own for the summer. And she doesn't have a car, and she's navigating this whole thing, doing her stuff her way.
Yeah.
And it's beautiful because I know she's being exactly who she is.
Okay.
And that's really powerful to me.
That's great. That's awesome you were able to do that. Rick, I want to say thanks for stopping on today.
Oh, you bet, man.
Definitely enjoyed it. Where should we send people to go find RickClemons?
Well, I live in a little house on the coast of Central California. Oh, you mean like online?
Hey, if you want people to show up at your door, that's fine.
Sure. So it's RickClemons, CLEMONS, RickClemons.com, and you'll find everything you need to find out there. So, but thanks so much, Brandon, for having me. So glad we connected, and I love what you're doing in this world of fatherhood. So keep doing it, my man.
I appreciate it.